Hi guys, my name is Catherine. Thank you for joining me again for another episode of Missing the Missing. In this episode, number 15, we're going to be talking about Tanja Muhlinghaus. Tanja Muhlinghaus was born on the 11th of March 1983. She was the only child to her parents and was raised in the city of Wuppertal, which is about 35 kilometres or 20 miles east of Dusseldorf. It is the greenest city of Germany, being 2/3 green space, and is known for its steep slopes, woods and parks. Tanja was known for her beauty, but was not just a pretty face. She was an intelligent child who went to school at the Karl Duisberg Gymnasium High School. Germany operates a 3-tier education system, of which the gymnasium is considered the highest tier and, according to Germanway.com, is typically reserved for bright students heading for college. By all accounts, Tanja was successful at school, and her high grades reflected her performance and achievements. Outside of school, Tanja thoroughly enjoyed dancing, practicing ballet from a young age and attending dance classes regularly. She had dreams of becoming a dancer in a musical one day. She earned pocket money by babysitting and had pet rabbits. Tanja has been described as well-behaved, though there were the typical teenage frustrations which may have been compounded by the fact that she had no siblings to vent with. An only child, Tanja felt somewhat oppressed or misunderstood at home, that her parents had too much control over her and her life. Occasionally, the situation at home would erupt into arguments, with the most recent example being that her parents wouldn't allow her to stay out until the early hours at a club. I'm not sure what club would be letting a 15-year-old girl in late at night anyway, but there we go. For this reason, Tanja had spoken of her desire to move into a residential supported accommodation. This would give her the independence she craved while providing ready access to social care and the added benefit of peers to learn and develop with. However, the Youth Welfare Office declined her application for unknown reasons. She may not have been eligible, maybe didn't meet their criteria. Despite this, Tanja excelled at school, as we've said, and was able to steer clear of any bad influences that we know of. She didn't have any trouble and was not known to engage in any form of criminality. There was nothing out of the ordinary in the lead up to her disappearance. At the time when she disappeared, Tanja was described as a Caucasian female, 175 centimetres or 5'9" tall, with a petite build. She had dark blonde, medium to long length hair with light blonde streaks. She had large eyes, which have been described as both green-blue and green-brown. I'm not sure what the reason for the discrepancy is. She had pierced ears, with the right ear pierced once and the left ear twice. She is thought to have been wearing black faux leather jacket, black skinny jeans and brown shoes. Wednesday the 21st of October 1998 was a typical day. Tanja's mother Elizabeth went to work as usual, though Tanja had her morning class at school cancelled for undisclosed reasons. At 8:30 that morning, Tanja called her mother from home, sounding happy and completely normal, asking if she would pick her up later that day after school. Elizabeth agreed. Tanja was due to take a Latin exam that day and was due in school for 10 a.m. It is believed that Tanja packed her school supplies as normal and left her home in Imholkin to take the bus to school. The journey is about 3 kilometres. Later that day, when school was out, Elizabeth attended to pick up her daughter, but Tanja was nowhere to be seen. Sadly, Elizabeth would find out that Tanja had never made it to school that day. Later that evening, presumably after exhausting all other inquiries, at 9:15 p.m, Tanja's parents called the police to report their daughter as missing. Initially, the authorities weren't too concerned, believing that Tanja had left of her own accord and would return in time, equally of her own volition. This opinion was bolstered significantly when the next day, Thursday the 22nd of October 1998, a letter arrived at the Muhlinghaus home addressed to her parents and signed by Tanja. It has been translated and is said to read the following. Dear Mum, dear Dad, don't worry too much. I'm healthy and will be home in 2 or 3 weeks, so you don't have to look for me. Please take care of the rabbits and babysitting. And please keep the things I ordered. Just think of something to tell school for now. I need some distance and will contact you next week. Yours, Tanja. The letter was stamped with Dusseldorf Post Office and was dated the 21st of October 1998, the very day Tanja had disappeared. This brought a sense of relief to the Muhlinghaus family, who felt assured that their daughter was safe and in contact, though were concerned at her sudden abandon. Just 4 days later, on the 26th of October, a second letter was received, also postmarked from Dusseldorf. This one dated the 24th of October 1998, just 3 days after Tanja's disappearance. It began along a similar vein to the first, translated to read, "Dear Mum, dear Dad, you still don't have to worry. I'm fine and will be on the way home next weekend, so you don't have to look for me. I hope you have done or will do the things I asked you in the last letter. Yours, Tanja." Both letters were sent from Dusseldorf within days of each other. It has been estimated that a letter posted from Dusseldorf would be received in Wuppertal in 1 to 2 days. So for the first letter to have arrived when it did, Tanja had to have posted it the day she disappeared at the latest, and must have travelled to Dusseldorf prior in order to do so. As per today's directions, it should take approximately 30 minutes on public transport from the Karl Duisberg Gymnasium to the heart of Dusseldorf, at a cost, by today's rate, of approximately 5 to 6 euros. Germany didn't introduce the euro until a couple of months later, the 1st of January 1999, so would have been working with Deutschmark at the time, and I'm not sure what the conversion rate would have been back then. If Tanja were to have travelled directly from home, assuming she did not have a lift, this would have added an extra bus ride to her journey, though still feasible by today's standards. Dusseldorf is an international business and financial centre, renowned for its fashion and trade fairs, as well as accommodating Germany's third busiest airport, making it a popular transit hub. The city is about 35 kilometres or 22 miles from Wuppertal. Nobody offered a reason as to why Tanja would be in Dusseldorf, or if she knew anybody in that area. Police had the letter sent off for handwriting analysis, compared with samples taken from the home, to the State Criminal Police Office. A spokesperson for Wuppertal Police confirmed that the writing was almost certainly Tanja's, an opinion mirrored by her parents, though simply because she had been deemed to have written the letters did not necessarily mean that she had done so voluntarily. The phrasing and style of the letters led her parents to suspect that Tanja had been coerced into writing them. This has not been further elaborated on. As a result of the suspicions, the letters were sent off for DNA forensic testing, again examined by the State Criminal Police Office. It was established that 2 different DNA sources were present on the letters, with one being confirmed as Tanja's after comparison with DNA on her toothbrush. It is generally believed that DNA shows that Tanja sealed the letters. The unidentified individual's DNA was not matched to anybody, and to date, it has not been released whether the DNA belonged to a male or a female. Some sources have specified that the unidentified DNA was found on the stamp, so whilst it is tempting to believe that the DNA is associated with an individual linked to Tanja's disappearance, it is just as plausible that the DNA is from a postal worker. And if the other DNA was not in fact on the stamp, there may be many other hands through which the letter passed prior to delivery. Alexander Krester from the Wuppertal police worked on the case initially. He concurred with the family that the style of the letters is very strange, adding, "It is not easy for a 15-year-old to disappear without a trace." He explained that we spoke to almost everyone from Tanja's environment, yet sadly the answers were elusive. He continued, he cannot just shake off the case and experience sleepless nights identifying new investigative approaches. Tanja's parents responded differently to the investigation, with Tanja's father becoming frustrated with the police and their lack of answers, and Elizabeth appealing to the public for assistance, resulting in countless reports in newspapers and on TV. There were hundreds of witnesses, one of which claims to have seen Tanja in a silver or grey BMW with 2 pit bulls. This was yet another lead that led nowhere. On Wednesday, the 2nd of November 2011, German television show Aktenzeichen XY, or Case Number XY, featured Tanja's disappearance. The show is a joint venture between the Public Broadcast Service and police to raise awareness and garner leads, a bit like Most Wanted or Crime Stoppers. After the case was featured, members of the public came forward suggesting that Tanja may be involved in a prostitution ring in the Cologne red light district. According to Wikipedia, Cologne is the 4th most populous city in Germany, with over 1 million residents. It's situated about 45 kilometres or 28 miles from Dusseldorf and hosts the largest brothel in the world, the Pascha, which originally opened its doors in 1972. Today it accommodates about 120 prostitutes. The investigation didn't uncover anything of substance out of this lead. 14 years after Tanja disappeared, a man contacted Elizabeth Muhlinghaus claiming to have information relating to Tanja. Police investigated and no leads materialised. On the 1st of June 2012, a user of an online German message board claimed the following: "The girl is well. She is not in Germany, but in Tunisia or Algeria. She left voluntarily with a young man. She is married and has children herself. She knows nobody would understand. That's why she left." This is an unsubstantiated claim, and nothing was developed from this information either. On the 26th of February 2013, Elizabeth Muhlinghaus wrote an open letter to her missing daughter. The full letter I will read later on in the episode, but the shortened version states the following: "I always ask myself why and how it happened. You're the only one that can give me the answer. My greatest wish, for you to tell me what you've been through. Why did you go away? If you blame me for anything, and if you can forgive me. I'm not married to Dad anymore. If you want to find the way to get back to me, I'll keep all doors open. There is one thing I have to say to you. You don't have to be ashamed of anything, and neither do you have to be afraid. If someone has to be ashamed, it's me, because I didn't realise how you felt." Sadly, this didn't bring forward any new leads either. On Thursday, the 14th of September 2017, WDR, a West German public broadcast service, released an episode of their People Up Close series, which featured Tanja's case amongst others. The following year, an individual contacted Elizabeth Muhlinghaus. He wrote to her from prison, in which he was serving time for fraud and assault. He stated he knew where Tanja could be located, and so her mother met with him in the prison. He told her a very interesting story. He claimed that between 1998 and 2001, he worked in what he called a push or press column operating across Germany. It would appear that a press column is a door-to-door magazine and newspaper advertiser. He stated that in 1999, he became a column leader, and it was then that Tanja joined the column. Over time, they got to know each other, and as she became more confident, the two formed a relationship. He went on to say that he had to work in Hamburg for 6 months, where Tanja would visit him every 8 weeks. It's here that the story begins to fall apart. Some of this and the confusion may be due to mistakes in translation, so please bear this in mind, and I apologise if so. At the end of the 6 months, Tanja allegedly told this man that she had other jobs to do, not further described. He claimed that Tanja told him she was pregnant and they wanted to raise their child in a different environment. The man then claimed that the plan was executed on the 10th of December 2001, being that Tanja would leave ahead of him and that he would later join her in Wuppertal, where she felt her parents would be supportive of their plight. However, he then goes on to say that they were prevented from leaving and were falsely imprisoned for a week, where he alleged Tanja was gunned down before his eyes. He offered no further information on this point, though he did later go on to advise Elizabeth that Tanja is currently living under the name Melanie with their daughter in Frankfurt. There has been no proof to suggest that any part of his story is true, however, and the police believe this individual was not credible. On the flip side, though, Tanya's cousin responded to the claims on the respected allmystery.de German message forum to state that he knew things that he could not otherwise have known, things that were not made public. As far as we know, no new leads have been developed in respect of this, though. There are two main theories in this case, which lead into a third more minor theory. Alexander Krester of the Wuppertal police states, in the case of Tanja Muhlinghaus, everything seems to be possible. The first and most commonly believed theory is that Tanja left of her own accord. At least initially, this generally isn't doubted, given the results of the forensic analysis of the letters. The questions that are posed are, firstly, why did she leave? Then, where did she go? Did she have any help? And why has she not returned or remained in contact with her loved ones? Her mother is a strong proponent of this theory, stating, I am convinced that she is still alive, though the time is not yet right for a reunion with my daughter. And whether believable or not, the individual claiming to have been Tanya's boyfriend feeds into the possibility that Tanja is indeed alive and well as the further comment on the German forum advising that Tanja has children of her own and is living in another country. As discussed in previous cases on the channel, it was much easier in the 1990s to travel without a passport or other travel documents, and Germany is renowned for having some of the world's busiest airports and is surrounded on many sides by land borders, also having access via waterway, so relocation is not out of the realm of possibility. A number of people point out lines from the open letter that Elizabeth Muhlinghaus wrote for her daughter. In particular, many believe that confirming publicly that she was no longer married to her dad was highly significant, questioning whether there was trouble in the home or with the father, of which many might have been unaware. We can't speculate too much on this though, as we know Tanja was a typical teenager and, being an only child, is likely to have had the usual frustrations and less channels to vent. As such, there is nothing to suggest that anything more serious was occurring within the household. Assuming that Tanja did indeed leave of her own volition, we need to consider a couple of points. First of all, did she leave on her own, or did she have help from someone? We know, again from the DNA analysis of the letters, that there was another DNA profile found on them. Some sources claim that, as we've said, it was found on the stamp. If so, it is less likely that a postal worker could have contributed the DNA, and more likely someone who was actively with Tanja when she sealed the letters. We don't know if the profile is of a male or a female. Moving on from this is the possibility that even if Tanja did initially leave of her own accord, there is potential for her to have been kept against her will for one reason or another. Did the contributor to the mixed DNA profile deliberately lure Tanja away with the intent of harming or trafficking her? Or did Tanja turn to this individual in her time of need and was simply provided assistance? We may never know the answer to these questions. The letters are a point of contention, as many people find their contents baffling. Some theorise that Tanja may have been abducted either before she got to school or after she left to get some distance. Even Tanja's mother believed that the style and phrasing was not typical of her daughter, and Alexander Krester of the Wuppertal police concurred. The style of the letters is very strange, going on to advise that it's not easy, as we know, for a 15-year-old to disappear without a trace, suggesting a possibility of third-party intervention. We need to consider the possibility that Tanja was coerced or forced into writing these letters. This could serve a couple of purposes, but primarily would buy them time to move Tanja or to carry out whatever other nefarious plans that they have in mind. This would also impact the police response, pushing them towards the probability that Tanja has run away voluntarily and will return in due course. Whether or not Tanja believed the words she was writing cannot be known, though she took some precautions by asking her parents to look after her rabbits, sort out her babysitting, think of something to tell the school, and to keep the things she'd ordered. These are not likely to be things an abductor would know or even be interested in knowing about Tanja, so why were they included if she had indeed been taken, not of her own free will? All in all, there are mixed messages that we can take from these letters. It's not been released, to my knowledge, what the items were that she had ordered, so we can't effectively debate their significance. After the first documentary aired, raising awareness of Tanja's disappearance, Some callers told of their suspicions that Tanja was caught in a prostitution ring in the Cologne red light district. We've learned a little bit about the brothel scene over there, and if Tanja had indeed been trafficked, then this may be a feasible theory. However, Cologne is only 55 kilometres or 34 miles and between half an hour to an hour away, depending on route and mode of travel, from Wuppertal. Is it plausible that if you have control over an underage and missing child, that you would remain in the same relative location? We also need to consider why Tanja called her mother asking for a lift home from school if she knew she was planning to run away and get some distance. It is peculiar that in these letters, it's the first time we hear of the distance Tanja needed, and it seemed to have been a last-minute decision. If an individual did indeed abduct Tanja, did they physically kidnap her en route to school that morning, or had they met her and potentially groomed her prior to that point? It's worth noting that 1998 was the pre-mobile phone and easy access internet days, so the opportunities to meet somebody outside of your social circle were limited, even more so for a 15-year-old. Focusing on the possibility of foul play, many have suggested similarities between Tanja Muhlinghaus' case and that of Frauke Liebs. Frauke was a 21-year-old student nurse who disappeared after leaving a pub in Paderborn on the night of the 20th of June 2006, 8 years after Tanja disappeared. Paderborn is about 160 kilometres or 100 miles from Wuppertal. Interestingly, Frauke was also in contact with acquaintances for a week after her disappearance. Frauke called her roommate 5 times from her mobile phone. The calls were traced to different industrial areas in Paderborn. Frauke said that she would be coming home soon, but was evasive when answering questions about her whereabouts and situation. Sadly, Frauke's remains were found months later outside of Paderborn. The murder remains unsolved to this day. People note the similar ways in which the individual's imminent return was communicated to their loved ones, the only difference being the method of contact. Though this can potentially be ascribed to the prevalence of mobile phones at the time when Frauke disappeared. When Tanja went missing, the primary form of distance communication would be by letter. So in this section, I like to tell a story with a happy ending, as we know, to remind us that it's not always doom and gloom. I'm going to tell you about the case of Erica Pratt. Erica was a 7-year-old girl who was abducted from Philadelphia whilst playing in the street with a friend on the 22nd of July 2002. Erica was able to free herself just a day later by gnawing at the tape that bound her wrists and then smashing a window. According to Wikipedia, Philadelphia's police inspector William Colarulo commented, "I have 21 years in the police department, and I have never seen this kind of heroic act of bravery committed by a 7-year-old. Her problem solving and actions have been cited as lessons for others and as an inspiration for African American leadership." She was named Time's Person of the Week as a reminder that not all abductions end in tears. The perpetrators were both convicted. In May 2003, United States Attorney General John Ashcroft presented her with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's National Courage Award for her unyielding persistence and boldness. I have the absolute utmost respect for Erica, and I'm in awe of her strength at being able to overcome such adversity. I wish her well in all of her future endeavours. I'll now leave you with a repeat of Tanja's description and some final words from her mother. At the time she disappeared, Tanja was described as a Caucasian female, 175 centimetres or 5 foot 9 inches tall with a petite build. She had dark blonde medium to long length hair with light blonde streaks. She had large eyes which had been described as both green-blue and green-brown. She had pierced ears with the right ear pierced once and the left ear twice. She is thought to have been wearing a black faux leather jacket, black skinny jeans and brown shoes. If seen today, Tanja would be 37 years old. Elizabeth Muhlinghaus has stated of her daughter, "I accept and respect her leaving. I stopped waiting, but I still have a strong feeling that she is alive. When she's back, I will hug her and ask nothing. She has to decide whether she wants to tell me something. She should freely decide whether and when she will come back. She continues, I would be satisfied with a sign of life from her, but I don't want to put her under pressure. So Tanja shouldn't feel bad about getting back in touch, and her mother is adamant that if Tanja doesn't want to justify her actions, then there is no need for her to do so. As we've mentioned previously, Elizabeth has written an open letter to her daughter. We briefly mentioned the gist of it earlier on, but here is the rest. To my dearest beloved daughter, my most painfully missing child. Now it's been years since you left my life. Unfortunately, I still don't know the reasons, or do I? I keep asking myself how it could have happened. Only you can give me the answer. This is my only and longest wish, to hear from you, everything you've been through, what made you go away, what you accuse me of, and whether you can forgive me. To be able to speak to you, to be able to tell you everything that moves me, to be able to tell you what I can't forgive myself, and the question of whether you can forgive me. I am no longer married to Papa. He separated from me because of another woman. If you only want to find the way to me, nothing stands in the way. I live alone, where Aunt Nini and Uncle Carly also live, and now Akeem too. I'm still employed at Caritas in Wuppertal. I wish nothing more in the world than that you read these lines and contact me. If only I knew that you were alive and you were fine. It would be best if you were happy too. You wouldn't have to leave your current life if you didn't want to. You could still reach me in the office as you did then, or through Aunt Nini, who is still in the phone book. Papa and I no longer are, or via Wiebke, Daniela, or Marion and Akeem. Everyone is eagerly waiting for you, or another contact person of your choice. For example, Kim and Jans. You know her. Or by email to myself. You can also find another way to contact us on the website, The Missing Children. I would like to tell you one more thing. You need not be ashamed of anything and no longer be afraid of anything. If anyone has to be ashamed, it's me, because I didn't notice how you felt. Every evening I speak to you, hug you very tightly, and miss you terribly, because I love you more than anything. I really hope to see you again in the real world. Your Mum. If you have any information relating to the disappearance of Tanja Muhlinghaus, please contact the relevant authorities on the information provided in the description box below. So that was the case of Tanja Muhlinghaus. Let's hope she is safe and well. Thank you very much for joining me tonight and hearing about Tanja's story, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!